Hare Krishna. Yeah. Personal.
Personal, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the right verse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This will be 228.
Yeah.
Jai Ho Radha Madhava Jai Sundari
Jaya Radha Madhava Sundari
Jai Gopi Jana
We're supposed to do this part, right?
Narayanam Namapskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance. Oh, 17 and 18.
Yeah. Or at least 18.
Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Sarvat Kirtanaha Vidyantasto Hi Bhadrani Vidyanoti Sritstatam.
Vinoti Suritsatam.
Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also Paramatma, Super Soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta praye sabhadresu
Nasta prayesu abhadresu.
Nityam bhagavase vaya
Nityam bhagavata sevayam.
Bhagavati uttama sloke
Bhagavati uttama sloke.
Bhakti naistiki.
Bhakti naistiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed in loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. And I like the next verse after that. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. The section of the Srimad Bhagavatam that we are studying, this is Canto 2. The title is The Cosmic Manifestation. And we'll be doing 223. I'm sorry, 228. Section, chapter, I guess Canto 2, Chapter 2. The title is The Lord in the Heart. So this is about Paramatma, which we read in the introduction verses.
You want me to start?
Would you start?
Okay. So, Kechit,
Kechit.
Swa,
Swa
Ehantar, Hridaya Vakashe,
Hridaya
Vakashe.
Kechit Swadahantar, Hridaya Vakashe,
Kechit swadehanta hridaya vakashyate.
Pradesha,
Pradesha.
Matram,
Matram.
Purusham, Vasantam, Pradesha Matram Purusham Vasantam, Chatur, Bhujam, Kanja, Ratanga, Shankha, Chatur Bhujam Kanja Ratanga Sankha, Gada, Dharam, Dharanaya, Smaranti, Gada Dharam Dharanaya Smaranti, Kechit Swadhyanta Hridaya Vakashe,
No, it's okay.
Pradesha Matram Purusham Vasantam, Chatur Bhujam Kanjaratanga Shankha, Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti, Kechit Swadhyanta Hridaya Vakashe, Pradesha Pradeshamatram Purusham Vasantam
Pradeshamatram Purusham Vasantam
Chaturbhujam Kanjaratanga Shankha
Chaturbhujam Kanjaratanga Shankha
Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti.
Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti.
I think that was 3, was that?
Yes.
Keschit Swadehanta Hridaya Vakashe Pradeshamatram Purusham Vasantam Chaturbhujam Kanjaratanga Shankha Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti
Kechit Swadehanta Hridaya Vakashe
Kechit Swadehanta Hridaya Vakashe
Pradeshamatram Purusham Vasantam
Pradeshamatram Purusham Vasantam
Chaturbhujam Kanjaradhanga Shankha
Chaturbhujam Kanjaratanga Shankha
Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti
Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti.
Okay. Kechit.
Kechit
Others.
Others
Swadaha.
Swa
Or it's all together.
Together, one word. Swadaha anta. Santaha.
Swadeha Anta.
Swadeha anteha.
Swadeha Tayantara.
Within the body.
Within the body.
Harid ya avakesha.
Hridaya Avakashe.
Once you can continue,
Huh?
you can continue.
Keep doing
Is
it.
that, you know?
Hridaya Avakashe.
Hridaya Akashe.
Akashe.
In the region of the heart.
In the region of the heart.
Pradesha Matram.
Pradeshamatram.
Measuring only 8 inches.
Measuring only 8 inches.
Purusham.
Purusham.
The personality of
The
Godhead.
personality of Godhead.
Vasantam.
Vasantam.
Residing. Shatu Bhujam.
Chaturbhujam.
With 4 hands.
With
Four
4 hands.
hands.
Kanja.
Kanja.
Lotus.
Lotus.
Rata Anga.
Rata anga.
The wheel of a chariot.
The wheel of a chariot.
Shankha.
Changa.
Kamshal.
Conch shell.
Gadadaram.
Gadadaram.
And with a club in the hand.
And a club in the hand.
Dharanaya.
Dharanaya.
Conceiving in that way.
Conceiving in that way.
Smaranti.
Smaranti.
Do meditate upon him.
Do meditate upon him. This flower on the floor is Bhagavatam.
Translation. Prabhu by Divine Grace, Stacy Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing in the body, in the region of the heart, and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively. Repeat that to me. Others conceive
Others conceive
of the personality of Godhead
The personality of Godhead
residing within the body,
residing within the body,
in the region of the heart,
in the region of the heart,
and measuring only 8 inches,
and measuring only 8 inches.
with 4 hands,
With
4 hands,
carrying a lotus,
carrying a lotus,
and a wheel of a chariot,
and the wheel of a chariot,
and a conch shell,
and a conch shell,
and a club, respectively.
and a club, respectively.
The all-pervading personality of Godhead residing as Paramatma in the heart of each and every living entity. Reside with plural. Resides as Paramatma in the heart of each and every living entity. The measurement of the localized personality of Godhead is estimated to expand from the ring finger to the end of the thumb, more or less 8 inches. The form of the Lord described in this verse, with distribution of different symbols, beginning with the lower right hand, up and down to the lower left hand with lotus, wheel of a chariot, conch shell, and club respectively is called Janardana, or the plenary portion of the Lord who controls the general mass. There are many other forms of the Lord with varied situations, with the symbols of the lotus, conch shell, etc., and they are differently known as Purushottama, Achyuta, Nrsimha, Trivikram, Rishikesh, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Arjuna, Sankashana, Sridhar, Vasudeva, Damodar, Janardana, Narayan, Hari, Padmanabha, Mana, Mahushsunda, Govinda, Krishna, Vishnumurti, Adhokshaja, and Upendra. These 24 forms of the localized personality of Godhead are worshipped in different parts of the planetary system. And in each system, there's an incarnation of the Lord having a different Vaikuntha planet in the spiritual sky, which is called Paravyama. There are many other hundreds and scores of different forms of the Lord, and each and every one of them has a particular planet in the spiritual sky, of which this material sky is only a fragmental offshoot. The Lord exists as Purusha, or the male enjoyer, although there is no comparing him to any male form in the material world. But all such forms are Advaita, non-different from one another, and each of them is eternally young. The young Lord with 4 hands is nicely decorated as described below. And that's in the next verse. Om Ganna Tamrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Tasmachi Gurve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. It's interesting that the word Paramatma came up several times already in the different introductory verses and such. And that's the topic of today, the super soul. Now, I brought a show and tell.
Show and tell.
Yeah.
From the ring finger, the size, the estimated size, is from the ring finger, which should be this one, to the tip of the thumb. And I believe it's from that finger this way, not down and around.
No.
So it's straight across. And I did this before a little bit. It's approximately 8 inches. And that's really, now we measured I did a sampling of other fingers, and it's approximately.
Not like my fingers.
You could try it.
Because I
Yeah,
never
open
did
your hand.
9
Open your hand
inches.
like that. Open
You
your
did a
hand.
9-inch?
No, I'm saying that I heard. He runs it exactly
8 inches. It's amazing.
You're normal. I bet you know. My super soul's little.
So
Well,
yes,
and I would imagine some of these basketball players,
oh my gosh.
they're probably,
Yeah.
10, so
Yeah.
so the average, I guess if you average it out, from the
Right.
smaller hands begin.
Fit the body too, because actually
That's right.
super soul's accompanying the soul in a germ body too.
That's true, and they can't be.
Can't be that
but
big.
he's smaller than the
He has a
smallest.
smaller hand, and the larger than the largest too. So
Yeah.
a giant super soul will be
It's
appropriate.
relative,
Yeah.
It's all relative.
I think.
We're all relatives.
So I have some corresponding verses that I like to share and read. And, it's interesting, this word Janardana. I know it's interesting how it's so nice that we have devotee names that remind us of the Lord and His pastimes and activities. And I remember a devotee, and when I saw that, I said, "That's Janardana's name." No, it's not Janardana's Das name. Janardana was named after Krishna, but Janardana, a devotee friend in Atlanta, is part of a group that really love and worship and serve Shalagram Shilas. And that's from him and a few other devotees. That's where I learned about the Shalagram Shila. I think we do have some devotees here with Shilas, right?
Yeah, my Prabhu has.
Maharani has a whole bunch. Mother Maharani have a lot.
Your mother Maharani.
The other one.
Oh.
That's just Maharani.
Thank you.
Not myself.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. So
She has ours.
right.
Her
So
name is
she's
French
a Shalagram. French
Shastra
Maharani.
Maharani.
No, French Maharani.
French Maharani. Right. She had a wonderful book that she had shown me some years ago on serving and the significance of Shalagram Shila. And in fact, I wanted a shop. If someone gave me a couple, Shalagram Shilas just started popping up in my life about 15 years ago.
Well, we've been married 19 years, so it was probably about 20 years ago.
20 years ago. And someone said, "This is hard edge worship."
So you're like 10 years old then?
Too kind. Some people call me, "Hello, young man, how can I help you?" And you know you're old when they call you young man. But someone brought some things that they had picked up from a shop that had Asian or Indian shop that had closed. He said, "There's some things in there." They said you might be able to use them. And I started looking through, and there were some ghee wigs and some dupe or incense, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh, what is this? A stone. It's black." I said, "This is a Shalagram."
Maybe.
And it was in the box. And someone helped me set up a little altar for Shalagram.
Where is it?
Got me some eyes.
Where is it?
Oh, the reason now it's probably in Mexico.
You gave it to
I
somebody.
gave it to someone who could work, who was second initiated, and I was even initiated in Shalagram, started showing up. And someone said, "This is like a guest in your house. You would not wake up and eat breakfast first with a guest in your house. So every time you eat, you make sure Shalagram has first, and actually go to the offering, because this is Krishna." Bhagavatam, Bhaktacharya in Atlanta said, "You need to do some research on this." So I want you to, and you know how in Atlanta they have all the books lined up?
Yeah.
Stuff?
Yeah.
And so I started at one end and went through the index, and I found where Srila Prabhupada said, "I want all my devotees to have Shalagrams." I said, "Wow." And I'm thinking,
Where did you see that?
I need to find that for you.
Because initially I remember Prabhupada saying the opposite.
Uh-huh.
He didn't want us to, it's very serious. He said maybe at a certain point.
Yes.
It's all
It was toward the
qualified.
end. I have to say it was toward the end of the series. And I thought about that and I said it was probably not for the young devotees who were just starting. Question.
Since you just brought this about, at one point here in your Talavana, everybody wants to do this, the Shalagram thing, you know. But then I also found out the Guinness Book of Shalagram is still this one guy in India. He had about 4,000 of them or something. A whole lot. And the whole thing he has at home. And all this stuff. And his son died out of a very bad accident.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and we don't know what happened then, but over here, I don't want to mention names. At one point I want to get to, but then when I saw each person who had it here, there's always some issue.
Yeah.
And especially ladies, I was told that you have to be so careful about
You
that.
have to be, is the
How
word
to,
paka.
yeah, you have to worship them. But Maharani, the Shastra's Maharani is the only one.
Yeah.
Everybody will just go give it to her, and then she will keep it, and she has a whole place for it.
And in a way, I thought that when I saw Srila Prabhupada say that, I said, wow, he wants to really, is the word churn the milk?
Yeah.
Because to have a shalagram is
Well,
really...
it's boil the milk.
Yeah.
Oh, boil the milk
Yeah.
and condense it down. And because it really will put you on your P's and Q's. And then another one came into my life, and I made sure they had homes.
Put you in your pints and quarts. P's and Q's.
On P's and Q's. Pints and quarters. But I digress.
That's the
Let me-
expression.
Bilka Shamaraj has a nice one, and he travels with them too.
This
Those
is
are
a...
Govardhan Shilas.
Govardhan Shila, okay, you're talking about Shalagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Prabhupada
Two
told
different
us
things.
that's the thing is that I remember very clearly Prabhupada telling us not to take rocks from Govardhan.
Oh,
I remember when I first went there in 1975, he said, no, don't take. And now, since he's left, everybody has.
oh my gosh. I didn't know.
Maybe there was some adjustment later, I don't know.
But I do know, don't jump in the kunjas and don't take... Just,
Yeah, in his books he says everybody should swim and everybody should bathe, I should say, in Radhakund. Radhakund and
where you can
And,
splash.
but then he told the devotees don't do it because they were splashing and doing sports.
Yeah,
And so the longer instruction is that we should. The short instructions, if you can't do it right, don't do it.
we just splash your head water.
Yeah.
So my friend Janardana, he reminds me of this verse, and it brings to mind. And I looked up, what does Janardana mean? And it means one who inflicts suffering on evil men. And or it has alternative, or he to whom all devotees pray for worldly success and liberation.
You know, when Prabhupada would give names in initiation, sometimes devotees would react in different ways. And he would always be stressing, this does not mean that you are the das.
Right, you're the servant of
Yeah.
he who, yes. Okay, let's get to the crux of the matter here. If we turn to Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter.
Okay.
You're doing it mentally.
Please turn. So 8 inches.
Janardana means all maintainer of all living entities in Bhagavad Gita 135,
135.
32 through 35. So,
13:2. It actually is 1 and 2. Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called a field, and one who knows this body is called a knower of the field. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion."
you want to use my earphones when you jump around. I did it last night.
It might.
I was trying to show him these verses and it wouldn't put me here.
If we read in the purport of 13:1 and 2, I'll skip down. It says, in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul, are in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness, they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities, as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. Period. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord, Janarna, through the different methods of fruitive activities. Cultivation of knowledge and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. That this is also explained. And let's skip forward to 13, 14, 18. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. As the sun exists, diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the super soul, our Supreme Personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the first great teacher, Brahma, down to the small ants. There are unlimited heads, legs, hands, and eyes, and unlimited living entities. All are existing in and on the Supersoul. Therefore, the Supersoul is all-pervading. The individual soul, however, cannot say that he has his hands, legs, and eyes everywhere. That is not possible. If he thinks that under ignorance, read it again, if he thinks that under ignorance he is not conscious that his hands and legs are diffused all over, but when he attains to proper knowledge, he will come to that stage. His thinking is contradictory. This means that the individual soul, having become conditioned by material nature, is not supreme. The supreme is different from the individual soul. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit. The individual soul cannot. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that if anyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, he accepts it. If the Lord is far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotency of the Lord. Even though he is situated in his own abode, far, far away from earth, he can extend his hand to accept what anyone offers. That is his potency. In the Brahma Samhita 537, it is stated, Goloka Eva Navas. Do you know this verse? Goloka Eva Navaste Anhalam Latma Luta. Although he is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet, he is all-pervading. The individual soul cannot claim that he is all-pervading. Therefore, this verse describes the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul. 13:15. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses. But in conditioned life, they are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called, is that Nirguna? Guna means material modes, but his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all our sensory activities, he has his transcendental senses which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in the Swasvatara Upanishad. Was that? Swasvatara Upanishad 3:19. In the verse, Apino Padu, is that Pado? Apani Pado Javano Grahita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands which are materially contaminated, but he has his hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. This is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the super soul. He has no material eyes, but he has eyes. Otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being. And he knows what we have done in the past, what we're doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. I'll read that again. In Bhagavad Gita it says, he knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel throughout space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has his eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. And I'll just read the verse here. This is chapter 13:16. The Supreme Truth exists outside and inside all living beings, the moving and non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. 13:17. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. And I would like to look at now 2:22, Bhagavad Gita 2:22.
You're not going to do 18?
Oh, I thought I did 18.
18 is the last one.
I'll go one more. 13, 17, 18. Thank you. He is the source of light. This is Bhagavad Gita 13:18. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge. And he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. I was interested in seeing if I could find a picture of the conch shell, the lotus. Actually, it starts on the right side. Lotus, the wheel, the chariot wheel, the conch shell, and the club. And I found a few interesting pictures on the internet. And I also found a comment about the pictures, and that chariot wheel in some of the pictures was actually described and looked like Sudarshan Chakra.
That's what I was wondering when I first read it.
And that's what it is.
I'm wondering if that's one of the things that, you know, like they said cattle instead of cows. I mean, a chariot, I've never, except for Parthasarathi, the Lord who's the chariot driver, when he's attacking Grandfather Bhishma, I've never heard the Sudarshan Chakra described as a wagon wheel.
A chariot wheel.
Or chariot wheel, same
Yeah.
thing.
And they describe it as the lotus, the forearm form.
Yeah.
Forearm. The lotus, Sudarshan Chakra, the conch shell, and the club.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's one of the things that may have been adjusted, or if that's just another way of saying Sudarshan Chakra. I've never heard Sudarshan Chakra refers as a chariot wheel. Although I suppose it's possible, but anything's possible. It's Krishna. But the Sudarshan Chakra is like, you know, razor sharp,
And,
like even like fire almost sometimes described.
and this just came to me. Now this comes from way back. This was about 20 years ago. I heard someone talking about the different implements. And he has 2 implements of peace and 2 implements of destruction and battle.
Right.
Right? I remember that in a class 20 years ago. I'm surprised I can remember. Prabhu.
So, you saw that in a picture on the internet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And some, the wheel is this direction. And some, the wheel is...
You saw an actual wheel?
Yeah.
In
A
different
wheel.
pictures?
And some, it's on this, like a Sudarshan Chakra, like... And some, it's holding it like a wheel.
I'm just reading, it said it's like in simple letters, wheel of time.
The wheel of time.
Oh, the wheel of time, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Most of the pictures of Super Soul, maybe all of them, have the items in this order. If I got them, all my pictures of Super Soul always have the items in this order, and I must have got it by looking at Prabhupada's pictures. Prabhupada's books, paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I paint Super Soul, I paint it in this order.
Because it's Janardana.
It's specific.
Because each one, it's Janardana. And so that's the order that, I remember Jadharani way back when I first joined, she could tell you the configuration of each one of the
Oh my
the-
gosh.
that he mentioned, like Padmanabha, Adhokshaja, the wheel is in this hand, like that. But recently I remember reading something where it was where somebody saw, maybe it was Murari Gupta or Hanuman saw a bow and an arrow. And it wasn't like a six-hand form. He saw something other than, because it was like a forearm form of Ramchandra or something like that.
It was Sadhuj?
No, it wasn't Sadhuj.
It wasn't the one with
No, it wasn't Sadhuj. But there was a Sadhuj that was different than the normal Sadhuj. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. There was another, I just read, whether instead of having the flute and what is it? Krishna is the flute and
This would be a different forearm form?
yeah, was it? No, this was a different Sadhuj, but there was also a different forearm form too.
He was green, he had green in him, representing Ram?
I just was reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And yeah, so there's Krishna and there's Lord Ramachandra and then Lord Chaitanya.
Well, when he sat on top of Mount Meru for the turning of the Milk Ocean, he had 1,000 arms. He just did, so he can have.
Yeah, well, in his universal form he does too. I mean,
Yeah.
he can do whatever he wants. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what, if you do a mathematical calculation, it seems like it's limited with four arms and four objects that there's only so many. It can't be as many as what was listed. If everyone's in a different place, doesn't it seem as if that would be?
Yeah, if you do permutation with 6 objects, with 4 objects, then you get 24.
Yeah. So at a certain point it would start to repeat itself.
Well, forearms, 14 for 16, yeah. But there are certain principal ones, and then after that they expand out too. But you think if 4 arms, 4 items would be 4 times 4 is 16 different ways to hold them. I mean, you usually multiply.
It's 24.
But where do you get the 24 from? You 6 times 4, but where's the 6?
If you look at the permutation formula, it will give you, in mathematics, if you look online, permutation formula, it will give you 24.
The what do you need to
Permutation.
Huh?
Have you studied permutation and combination?
Permutation?
Permutation. It's a mathematical.
Oh, okay, this is over my head.
Or you can try with 4 books and have 4 places. And try
And you
to
come up with 16 or you come up with 24 if you have 4 books and 6. So if you come up with 16.
Well, go home and experiment.
We can
Go home and try it.
try to do permutations on it. The last verse look at will be Bhagavad Gita 2:22. So if you turn to that in your Bhagavad Gita, and we will. This verse, it has a story in the purport about the 2 birds. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. In the purport, it talks about the 2 birds. Although the 2 birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxieties and moroseness, is the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Any questions or comments? Arguments?
Maybe you did it already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. That's super. It continues.
So I'm curious, what was the meeting with that lady the other day? And Katrina, what was that?
Oh, that was
What?
You preaching to her?
Oh, no.
no, that was Humana.
Humana and health insurance, they send, once a year, they send a visiting nurse out to